Are you ready for a battle? Is it time to break the Broncos? Do you think that this is going to be a ball game? We're going to talk about it all tonight because this is pregame. This is RGR. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Chiefs versus Broncos, Thursday night football, and we're ready for it. To quote Hank Jr., I'm going to flash back to that version of the song. Welcome, everybody. This is RGR Football. I'm Ryan going rogue, and this is us tonight getting ready for a matchup that is going to, I think, extend a streak that is streak of all streaks, right? In dominating the AFC West for the Kansas City Chiefs. My co-host, Dan Harms, is unavailable tonight, had a family thing, so it is you and me, and we're going to get this done because number one thing is how we feel about going into this ball game against the Broncos team that put up a decent fight against the New York Jets last week, but maybe didn't put up enough to make us nervous. My guy like this, if you're going to throw it out, just throw it out and use it. You might as well, right? Sometimes that's the best fit and the best thing that you can do. So, yeah, let's get after it. That's the way that I go, and I'm pretty excited about this ball game. I appreciate that, 900. It goes a long way. I'm going to get my screen set up here for you guys. Like I said, last minute change for Dan, but we're going to roll on and we're going to have a good time. I know it's a tight week. This always happens on a short week because there's just so much to cover. So we're going to get after it as much as we can. I'm going to give you my thoughts, bring up the topics that I think are important, and then we're going to answer some of your questions. So every super chat gets an answer tonight, and if you have a question, throw it in there with some question marks in the beginning. You could see that just so this is how Micah got my attention. By throwing them out here like this, it goes a long way. Helps me pick them out of the chat, that's for sure. Okay, so let's get after it and get to what I think is the importance here, and that is the injury report. I mean, we all know that we're waiting for news on Travis Kelce. Well, officially listed as questionable. Now, what I'm hearing is that this is something that is a formality, that he feels pretty good, that he moved well today, yesterday, and that he is going to be available for this ball game. I certainly hope so, because I think this is a game where you don't want to miss this. Travis, I think, is a guy that wants to get back out there. He's had kind of a frustrating season. We know that he's been pissed off since training camp. He might as well get after and get back to it. Nice to see you, Brenda. Appreciate you. Excuse me. Appreciate you being in. Run it back with Harmon. I like that. Micah. You guys are on top of it tonight. But for Travis, like, losing momentum, I think is a problem for him. And I do think that he does want to keep that. I think that's a good thing. I'm concerned that what it becomes is something that pushes him too far. So what I'm looking to do is, especially given, light practice, the guy that was listed as wouldn't have practiced had there been one on Monday. I just think that Travis Kelce needs a pitch count. I think it's that simple. You let him play, you let him do his thing. If all goes to plan, if you come out and you have the right intensity and you have the quarterback set up and the defense does what it's been doing, we're going to talk about the defense here coming up. You shouldn't need Travis Kelce past mid-third quarter. And honestly, you can probably rest him towards the end of the first half as well. So I'd like to see him be on a pitch count of no more than 50 plays. What did they run? 72 last week. I'd prefer it be down around 35. And I think that's enough to have Travis influence the ball game, move the ball, probably put it in the end zone, and yet not stress him out to the point that it takes his propensity for re-injury or the possibility of a new injury through the roof. It's a twofold issue when you have an injury like this, because clearly you're at a deficit for that injury, but it also puts you at a total deficit in the way that you move, and that can lead to further injury. There's an old saying by old ball coaches, if you're going to make a mistake, if you're going to get hurt, do it at full speed, because that momentum, that velocity generally leaves you the hitter, not the hittee. And hopefully somebody that can sustain that a little bit better. Now, looking at the rest of the injury report, we got to take it as well as George Karlaftis is, I think, nearly as big an influence on this ball game as what we see from Travis. Travis obviously is going to do his thing because he's Travis Kelce. George Karlaftis is actually playing a big role in what is not so great a unit. Yes, the defense is playing great, but it's not like this all-star offense that we see from obviously Mahomes and Kelce. So there's more contribution from every member of the defense. It is more of a whole playing to get these outcomes. And so I think it's very important that we watch that. Now, if you heard our post game after the last ball game, you know that we noticed that there just wasn't as much pop in the way that George Karlaftis was coming off the ball. He wasn't getting home near as much. He wasn't able to move the tackles as much. He's got the prime matchup in this particular game because Mike McGlinchey has been having a rough season. Another instance of the Denver Broncos going to free agency and coming out with the wrong guy at the wrong price. Gave up 5 pressures and 2 sacks last week against the New York Jets. And we know what the Chiefs did with their tackles in that same ball game. So it's a direct relationship. This is a tackle pair that I think is very, very exposed, and you should be able to sustain pressure through the tackles. Now, that's if George is at full strength. George is not. So what I'm really hoping to see is that either they've kept him limited this week to allow him to rest, to let him come back up, and maybe he is closer, and maybe it's not a problem. But this questionable listing here bothers me a little bit. And that's just the God's honest truth. I wanted to let you guys know. That has me a little bit concerned. So what happens if George is either not 80%, 90%, or if he can't play a full ration of snaps? What happens? You bring Mike Dana out. Unfortunately, he's on this list as well, but was a full participant. Just need to know that he hurt his ribs on that last sack of the ball game against the Vikings, and you got to watch out for that. You bring him up and you put him on the outside, and you let him play quite a bit out there. That puts a little bit more stress on the reps on the inside. Obviously, Chris Jones can come out and play defensive end as well. You're going to start and play probably FAU right off the bat. He's going to get more reps. Only played less than 50% last week. So that's going to be a factor. And so if you move Dana out and you move Jones out, at least some, it puts more stress on the tackle position. So what do they do at tackle? Turk Wharton's been making plays, hasn't been the pass rush guy. I mean, coming off the ACL, I can't expect that he's going to be all go, no breaks right now, but he's making some plays. He's there when they needed it. And I think that comes in handy. He's certainly going to be in the mix. Nadi's going to be in the mix with his elevated pass rush this season. I hope that he can continue that. I think that he can. On this list also is that Matt Dickerson returned to full practice. That's a positive sign because he's going to be in that rotation too. Now, they elevated Farrell last week. Do we finally get to see Keandre Coburn? I don't know. So far, he's warmed up at games. He's been ready to go. And in the end, they make the decision just to hold him back. This might be, especially if they plan on playing Chris Jones out on the edge a bit, something that we see him be elevated for the first time. If not, it's going to be a few weeks. Maybe it's going to be after the bye, and then we should start to see Keandre Coburn. I can live with that. But it does put a little bit more pressure on the front as a whole. Now, hopefully George can still give you good 30 snaps, particularly in pass rush, that I think they need, and then they can get after Russell. Mike McGlinchey, the right tackle of the Denver Broncos, is the target. Even if George is out there, you're still going to flood that B and C gap right off the edge on the left-hand side of the defense. So you're going to move the linebackers out there. You're going to bring the nickels off of there. You're going to walk a safety up, even if you have trips on the other side, and you're going to blitz them off the backside. You're going to do everything you can to attack that particular gap and get in Russell Wilson's face. Now, Chris Jones has an advantage on the inside. When we take a look at pass blocking grades, we'll flip over here for a bit. And I'll show you guys what I'm looking at there. This is just from last week, common opponent. I think this translates really well. You do have McGlinchey just giving up a ton of pressure here. The next guy is Bowles, the left tackle. So, bookend, you can look at that as that way. I like Quinn Myers, but didn't play the best. The gap there between right guard and center is probably the A gap that you want to pursue. I want to see Nick Bolton's going to be back. As we understand, let's go back and take a double look at that. I do believe that Nick was listed as ready to roll. Just loading too many things here. In fact, he's not listed at all. As I have confirmation this afternoon, I think the beat reporters have put this out as well, that he is going to play. So Nick Bolton's back. The question becomes, do you blitz right through the A gap with Nick? Do you let him play third downs? Tranquill's played so well in his absence. I don't think you have to have a full snap count from Nick Bolton in this ball game in order to win it, especially because I do expect the offense to put up points and the Denver Broncos to fall behind. That's just the normal gameplay that I expect that we're going to see. Now, what that becomes is, can you rest Nick a little bit? Can you get Drew in there so you're not – oh, thanks for pointing that out, 900. Yeah, I obviously can't read. Light, full go, and not a questionable designation. I must be going blind. I put these on to try to help with that, and it didn't work, 900. Thank you. Just one of those days. But bottom line, I think you got to have Drew Tranquill play as well. So that allows, I think, the blitz game to flow through that A gap. Now, you have to have a bit of both. If you can flush Russ, he doesn't have the escapability that he had to a couple years ago. I think that's absolutely true. But he still has some innate ability. So you have to be able to man the edge. Where does that come in? For me, that means that we could see an elevation at edge as well. Now, Malik Herring's been putting in some reps out there, and I do like what he's doing. Is it enough of an impact? Is it enough to have the athleticism to burn from, say, wide 7 to the far sideline? I don't think so. So this is a game where I personally would consider bringing up B.J. Thompson. And just because I want to see his athleticism. He is the quickest edge that they do have on the roster or practice squad, and I would like to see him get a chance. This is the type of game that I think you can feather him in, especially in big downs with long yardage to go, that I think his speed will actually pay off and affect the ballgame. So I would certainly like to see that. Now, that's just part of it because the Broncos have been putting up a good fight. Let's give them some credit where credit's due. And by the way, shout out to old pal Mike Burton. The Chiefs weren't gonna re-sign him at the salary he needed, so he went to Denver. And last week he was their best pass blocker according to PFF. So kudos to Mike. Still dear in our hearts, Mike. Miss you, buddy. Let's get back to the defensive side and guys to watch. Nose tackle played pretty well last week. This is the one that I think is really, really interesting. Zach Allen came over from the Cardinals this year out on their left end. So going against Juwan, who had a very quiet game, good game last week. But Zach Allen got a nice matchup and was able to put up 4 pressures, got a sack, hit the quarterback another time. They got another. Nick Benito is a guy that I think has been underutilized and quite frankly been played out of position. So lot. Hey, Mike, nice to see you. Well done, pal. I like seeing that in there. But this is a guy that I think you can attack. You got to be careful, but I think you can attack him there. The linebacker levels, I think that there's some options here. You can see. Maybe you can't see the grades. Maybe I need to make that larger. Okay, there you go. Clearly, Kareem Jackson, Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons, their secondary is playing pretty well. So in a second, we'll get over to the offensive side about what they need to do in order to combat some of this. So I think overall, what should happen is the offense for the Broncos probably just not ready. I'm just not as satisfied that they can really put up a fight. The receiving, I think, is, let's be real, it's Jerry Jeudy. My guy, Cortland Sutton, who I was really excited about coming out, and I thought he played well the first couple of years. He was making good progress. The injuries have just knocked him around, and I don't think that he's able to be as good, and certainly not the weapon that he was, destined to be before. So I'm not going to put him on the threat matrix. Will he get a catch or two? Yes, I certainly do believe that. But the guys to watch are Jeudy. And then amazingly, Troutman had a nice game last week. I don't know if that's sustainable, but that's where Willie will come in, Drew Tranquill will come in, and even Leo Chanel, who I think has been showing that he worked on being able to flip his hips and move in coverage better. He certainly does. He needs more experience, Leo does, at the point of attack so that he can understand how to attack the ball, keep it from the receiver. But he's making good progress. I'm really happy with what Leo's done. So you got to keep an eye on Troutman here. Because I do think that's a weapon that Russ is going to want to go back to. But the X factors here are Marvin Mims on the bottom, who is explosive. And if you don't pay enough attention to him, he will get away. This is going to be somebody that I think they're going to want to line up on either Joshua Williams, who I expect to start, and Jalen Watson specifically when he's in the ballgame. Now, you're going to run Jeudy out of the slot 99% of the time. I don't actually, let me look at that because I'm not sure what Jeudy did last week, but we will find out. Let's get snaps by position, please. And so Jeudy last week in week 5 was in the slot 37 out of 54. So about 2/3 is what I'm going to call that. Maybe I'm a little bit off on the percentages. But I think they're going to run him out of there quite a bit. It's the prime matchup with Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie's been playing very, very well. He hasn't taken the ball away. He's got some PBUs, but he's been playing very solidly. This is a great matchup. So maybe this percentage, if the Broncos are smart, they go away from Trent McDuffie. And if they're going to move Jerry Jeudy out of the slot, where are they going to put him? They're not going to send him to L'Jarius Sneed, despite what some people seem to think is L'Jarius playing like poo, which is wrong. L'Jarius had no camp, and he's just rounding into shape now, and he's still been putting up a great performance. Does he have some penalties? Yes. Is he missing tackles more than he usually does? Yes. But he's coming around. So if I'm the Broncos, I'm not putting Jerry Jeudy out on L'Jarius Sneed. I'm matching him up on whoever I can to make sure that it's Josh. If it's Nick, if he's in, I'd probably attack Shamari Connor if he's in. Shamari didn't play as much last week as he did the few weeks before. What does that mean? Will he be more active this week? I hope so. But that is a matchup that I think the Broncos are going to try to test. And I don't blame them. That's probably what I would do as well. Mims is the other guy. If they're going to give as much attention to Jerry Jeudy as the Chiefs can, Mims is the guy you got to watch to sneak in there and get a matchup that you like. God forbid you let him line up and get on a linebacker, you're in trouble. So that's going to be something they're going to have to pay particular attention to. So that's a look at what I think you have to guard against from the Broncos. Clearly, it's McLaughlin. I think it's McLaughlin. It might mean McLaughlin. I'm not sure how you say Jalil's name. I've heard varying reports here in Denver all week. But he's the guy that's kind of the departure for the running back position there. Javonte might be back for them. We'll see what happens. But this guy has an explosive element to him that you got to watch. So watch for that as well. He can take some dump-off passes. Somebody, you got to know where he's at, little 38. And I do think the Chiefs' athleticism, particularly with your Tranquil on the field, has really built up to this. So I think they'll be prepared to do that. But that's what I think the Broncos offense is going to try to do. They're going to use those players to the best of their ability. Now, let's see. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll flip it over. Let's get to some of the questions right now. And Quentin, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Do you think the Chiefs pull a Dolphins? Do you mean pull a Dolphin, or do you mean act like them in terms of like putting up 70? I don't think it's there just because of the nature of Andy Reid. Now, if you meant something else, Quentin, get back to me in the chat and I'll circle back here. Thanks for the super chat. I very much appreciate you. I don't think you're going to see Andy Reid do that. You know, they get to 50 points, Andy's going to shut it down unless they're, in that shootout like they were at the Rams a couple of years ago. He's not pushing that far. Patrick might. So we'll see how it gets there. I do think this is going to be a little bit more lopsided, but I don't feel, just because it's a divisional game, I don't think it's going to get away that much. I have my prediction. I'm going to give that to you here at the end of the show as we get a little bit closer. But I think that they do open the margin up. I don't think it gets to that size, though, Quentin. Appreciate you. T-Rich, you had a couple of questions here earlier. Want to get back to that. Based on the uncertainty of the next offseason, do you think the Chiefs should do a soft rebuild of weak areas, including interior D-line, if they're losing Jones, et cetera? I think they're still hopeful to get Jones back. What it'll look like, I don't know. But in the case that they don't, I think that's partially what Farrell, whatever we're calling him, and Coburn are for. Do they have to go get somebody else that's specifically a pass rusher at the defensive tackle spot? Yes, I do think that they do. But I think there's a good tackle group. Some are getting some highlights, and they're like the all-around players. I think you can get a pass rushing D tackle on day 2, certainly, that I think can fit what the Chiefs are looking for. But yes, I would attack that as part of a pseudo build, like a side project. There's also going to be a couple of free agents that I think the Chiefs are going to be interested that bring some edge, bring some ability, certainly some pass rush to the environment. We'll talk about them more in the off season, but keep an eye on those Dolphins. I'll just give you a hint what I'm watching. And your second question, Veach and Co should sit down and look for the future of the receiving core, a new star receiver post-Travis. I agree completely with the post-Travis part. And honestly, you're going to start to hear all kinds of stuff about whether it's Chiefs Kingdom or whether it's the Bengals or all the premier teams that want to take their game to the next level. They're going to start talking about Brock Bowers and what it's worth to go spend to get up to Brock Bowers, because Brock Bowers is going to be a top 5 pick. I don't think there's any way around it. And unfortunately, after Brock Bowers, the rest of the tight end class is a little bit ho-hum. It's not as good as this last class, top to bottom, in my opinion, so far. We'll see what happens as the college season goes on. I haven't started tracking tight ends yet. If you guys haven't been over to NFL 33, check it out. I've been tracking the quarterbacks, pass rushers. I'm going to look at tackles next week, and then we'll get to the corners, the 4 pillar positions, and then we'll add on wide receivers and go from there. Maybe I'll tie in the tight ends there. But I do think you have to look at tight end, particularly with these back-to-back injuries, 2 injuries early in the season for Travis Kelce. I do think Travis can still play till he's 38. As long as he doesn't have a 3rd injury this season, I think he's going to be okay. But you do have to start preparing for the future. As far as wide receiver goes, they've made a number of investments. I think you're going to move on from MVS after this season, particularly if he doesn't start being the target that Justin Watson currently is. And obviously with Tony and Sky and Rice and Ross, you have a young core there. Keeping 7 is a luxury because you have that much talent. You got to get it down to 5 because you got to be able to get reps to all of them in order for them to continue to develop. Practice reps are great, but game reps are where you get better the most. So I do think that that's going to be important. So we'll see if they actually go out and kind of decide to move away from that and go get a star. We'll see. It's hard to find a new star receiver out of the college ranks. So you're talking about a free agent, and that's talking about money, and that's talking about Chris Jones, and that's back to the Mahomes contract and everything else. So we're going to have to do a deep dive on their cap situation after the trade deadline in particular. We'll see if anything happens at the trade deadline. I am not anticipating it, but you never know. So this is going to be a frustrating game, isn't it? Cody, I think you nailed it. It's going to feel like they should be up more most of this ball game. That's what I'm expecting. I've already patted the outside of my TV because I think I'm going to be throwing things. It's going to feel like, hey, they went to sleep again. Hopefully that doesn't mean that that's the reality and they're pacing themselves, which still bothers me, but that's what I think we're in for. Thanks, Cody. Gary, hope you're doing well. Thank you for 68 people in the chat. Thank you very much. I personally appreciate it. If you guys could hit the like right now, that would be a great move to help us as well. And if you want any of the gear, you can help us there. You can join the memberships. My notes come out tonight so that you can have them from the last ball game before this ball game. Had to clean those up a little bit. I cuss a little bit too much from time to time, so try to clean that up for the kids. Let's see. Kevin, is Bucker going to punt for us? That's a really great question. I heard it hinted from more than one beat reporter today that they're on the watch for a practice squad punter to be signed. We'll see. If this was 2 years ago, I'd tell you it didn't matter. Let him sit, let Bucker punt, and who cares? It's probably going to be a punt. This year, it's a little bit different. So I do think you have to be a little bit more direct with it. And Tommy being on that list is a little bit more bothersome than it has been in years past, especially because it was fine, light practice today, questionable for the game. So it's fresh. It's not something that I think he has time to really walk off. So let's see what they do. If not, I'm open to Bucker trying it. I've never seen him punt personally, but I wouldn't mind it. Is the weather going to be a factor for this game? Well, that is an absolutely great question that I do not know how to answer. So let's go find out together. I don't know if everybody's got a favorite weather app or something like that, but I'll just go. I'll go with this one, Weather Channel. We'll see if it'll load. There we go. So tomorrow, the 12th, looks like a high 80, windy maybe, south by southeast out of at 20. It doesn't seem too bad. So night low 61. So my guess is by game time, it's going to be roughly 70-ish, meet it in the middle, something like that. The question's going to be, it looks like sustained winds. And so for the punts, certainly for the kicks, let's be a little bit concerned there. I don't think it's going to end up being a general factor. The humidity is going to be up, but it doesn't look like there's a huge chance of rain. So as long as the ball and the field are not getting wet, I think they're going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be a giant factor. So that's kind of where I'm at. Okay, I'm going to cruise for more questions and stack those up before I continue on, and we'll take a look at the flip side, and we will call it a night. Thank you, Quentin. I saw that you put something else in there. Let me find that. Can I have a non-stress inducing game? Well, it doesn't feel like they do that anymore, does it? There used to be days in years past that they could get that done, but no, it just doesn't feel like that right now, Quentin. Oh, man. Callie, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Random, which Alex Smith team do you think Patrick could have won a Super Bowl with? Ooh, certainly not the one that didn't get a passing touchdown the whole time. Maybe the year before that. Certainly the last one when Alex raised his level when Patrick came in there. I think had Patrick taken over or had to take over that game that year, I think it was a possibility. The whole team was playing well. I mean, in the end, it would have been messy. It certainly would as a rookie. I was at his first ball game here in Denver, and there were times where it was rough. It certainly would have been so, 10 games before that, but you never know. He's a quick learner, always has been, and it looks like that is something that he could have done. Okay, so let me go back and just show you guys a couple things on the other side of the ball, and then we'll get back to the rest of your questions. There's a couple in there. So on the Chiefs side, I want to show you what the differentials are. McLaughlin ended up going for 68 yards, right? So that worked out for the Chiefs. It wasn't the 177 that Breece Hall gave up. So you can kind of judge opponent to opponent there what the Chiefs need to do. But you also can find, hopefully I have it on a screen. I think that it's going to be here. Let's reload that. Point differential. This is one of my favorite stats to track team numbers on because it gives you the margins. It gives you how many mistakes were made in general across the defense and the offense. And so the Chiefs are ending up so far this season with a point differential of plus 48, right? Cowboys are up above that. I thought, the Niners are up above that, mostly because of their defense. And the Bills are up above that. Who's below the Broncos? It's just the Patriots, I believe. Broncos are minus 60. So there's a 100-point swing between these two teams in the margins that they usually hit. And I think that's definitely significant. So keep an eye on that. And when the Chiefs offense is out there, I think what I want to see is just obviously efficiency. I want to see drives complete. I want to make sure that we're seeing the best that we can see. Blocking grades to this point, I think what's going to be interesting is Joe Thuney is playing as good or better than he has in years past. And so I do think that is significant. Obviously, Creed is Creed. I should probably limit these snaps, but I did not to this point. This is what might be surprising to everyone, is that grade-wise, you're seeing a pretty good pass blocking grade from Donovan Smith overall. Is that going to get pushed a little bit this game? It might. Let's see. If he could put back-to-back games where it's nice and quiet, same thing for Jawan Taylor, where it's no penalties and it's quiet, I think they're going to be in good shape. I expect, hopefully, to see that same kind of run-pass mix, about 2/3, 1/3. I'll live with that for now. But if they go away and they drop less than that and they don't give Pacheco the runs, I think what's going to come of that is more pressure on Patrick, more opportunities to get hit. And honestly, more opportunities for him to make either a late read, an underthrown ball, get something taken away. So I want to see them use the play action as much as possible. I want to make sure that they're compensating for what's going on with Travis by using the wide receivers. I'm a Bushman fan. You guys know that. I'm not ready for him to come in and be the focus. I need him to be a guy that plays a role, but I want to see more out of Ross. I want to see a ton more out of Rice, and I want to see them use Sky Moore as a weapon, not just as a gap filler. I think you are going to see, and there's going to be a question here in a second, a little bit more of a well-rounded attack. But I do hope that we continue to see Rashee Rice be the guy that is getting the targets right behind Travis. And maybe in this game, if Travis is only in there for 40 or 50% of the snaps, maybe he will lead it in targets. Quentin, like the group that they have, but certainly seems like Sky, like they aren't using ways to maximize the abilities. Agreed. And he has to know how to use these guys. Why does it continue to be a problem? I want to be honest with you. I don't think he's doing it purposefully. I do believe that he's just kind of setting it up now so that there's a role. And if you get to the third read, you get to it. If you don't, you don't. And I think it's kind of just when we need to use Sky later in the season, we're going to do that. It's going to be our second evolution of this offense. We're going to let everybody have all this film of basically, quite honestly, a lot of straight downfield routes. They've done some behind the line of scrimmage stuff that's creative, but they haven't done a ton in the field that's super creative. So I think they're saving that. I think in general, Andy's always trying to build his playbook and his play calls on top of each other through the season, saving things in reserve that they haven't seen, playing off of original formations, that kind of thing. So that's why. But if Travis isn't there, I think that throws that out the window a little bit, and you got to spread it around. I want to see them use Sky. I think it'll be a small uptick. I don't think it'll be huge. And I know that they want to explore what they have in Rashee Rice. The question is going to be from Hunter, do they feed Tony more? Is he capable right now? I do think that they're protecting him a little bit from the injury. And I also think that they don't want to expose him too much. Especially if you're going to line him up outside against Surtain, you're going to be at a disadvantage in that one. Nobody's playing. There's very few corners that are playing better than Pat Surtain right now. And I think acknowledging that is part of recognizing what the Chiefs have to face here. Let me pull that up, and I do want to show you guys this. In terms of their coverage. And I wish I could take this down to just the corners, but Surtain's up here. I mean, 57% completion rate. I mean, that is super low. 15% forced incompletion rate. That's on par with anybody the Chiefs have. I think Snead is at 16 and McDuffie's at 18. So it's right in there. Yes, you see Frank Clark's name. I don't think he's going to play. I think he's been ruled out, so I'm not too worried about that. The strength of this defense is now the secondary, in my opinion, and what they do in coverage. So is it going to be a huge night for Tony? I'm not sure I'm ready to say that. I think it can be, depending on how they use him. And I want to see them use him the way that he should be used and not ask Sky to do the things that Tony should be doing. And I do think that evolution is coming. I just don't know if it's going to hit this Thursday night. Again, they play this team in 2 more weeks. And I think I'm going to have a special guest here on the channel, somebody that you know from both Denver, from San Diego, and is a former Jayhawk. So look for that the next week, the next time the Chiefs play the Broncos, coming up here in 2 weeks. So I don't think they're going to divulge a whole lot. I think they're going to be pretty vanilla still in their downfield route running. Eric, do you think that there's a good amount of running this week? It would make a great effort to get 20 to 30 called runs. I would love that myself because I think you can make hay that way. I do not see that happening. I think if they get to 20 carries for their backs, I think I'll be happy with that because I think they're probably going to run 60 to 70 plays is my thought. Hopefully it works out that way. Thank you. Appreciate you, Eric. And you too, Joseph. Are these the games that we see in the Chiefs focus on a set of wide receivers instead of the whole room? I hope so, because I think there's matchups there. You probably want to go away from Surtain. I certainly would. But, Jaquan McMillan, I think he's susceptible, certainly. Bassey, I think he's susceptible. That's where I think you can get a matchup for Sky Moore, to tell you the truth, because Bassey's going to be in the nickel most of the time. Let's see who else is on here. Damari Mathis has been struggling. You can complete passes on Damari Mathis. I mean, almost everyone has. He's giving up 83% and has 0 forced incompletions. 0. So, yeah, I mean, that's how I'm doing it. I'm starting quick game. I'm building off of that. I want to see the slants come back in. They went Ross and Rice in slants in the red zone last week. They got to double down on that. I am very particular to see that. So I hope they're listening, and I really do hope that they put that in the game plan, because I think that's how you build confidence for the bigger receivers in Ross and Rice, and it gives you the space to then run the things you can run with Tony and Sky out wide. And I love the whip routes down in the red zone. That's going to work as well. There's a lot of options there. Nick, thank you. 2 questions. Do you think that a Juju reunion is possible? And could we see an uptick in Juwan Taylor penalties because it's prime time? I don't see a Juju reunion. I don't think the Patriots are going to let him go this season. There's not a whole lot working well in New England, and I would say Juju's probably one of the better ones, especially if they're going to be stubborn and continue to go with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is not a quarterback that I want on my roster. I would not be playing him right now. You guys know how I feel about Zappy. Zappy was raw, and he overthrew everything he threw at when he got in the fourth quarter last week. Zappy is the only guy that's going to improve in that town. You're not going to get improvement out of Mac Jones. I'm just telling you. And so if they go to Zappy, maybe that changes. I think it might, because I think Juju might do more of the things that Zappy's akin to. He can attack the middle of the field. He can attack downfield as well. He survives contact very well. You can put it in a small window for him. I just think overall, until they get away from Mac Jones, nothing's going to be there. And they're going to try to give him all the tools that they can to support him because he's underpowered. And as far as penalties on Juwan, I feel like it's settled down. We'll see what happens. I haven't looked at the crew for tomorrow night yet. As long as it's not the last crew, I think that he's going to be okay. I think he's started to be less aggressive with his timing. I think he can time Mahomes cadence pretty dang well. But he's a little bit less aggressive coming off of that, and I think that's what cut down on the penalties. Let's hope that he can continue that. And thanks, Nick, for the support. Appreciate you very much, man. Let's see. Last-minute questions, and we'll wrap her up for you guys tonight. Do we see more of Leo rushing the passer, and can you see Leo turning into one of their best stand-up pass rushers? Stand-up, yes. I still feel like he's best coming from behind the line of scrimmage rather than on it. But he certainly has the change of direction. He can lean. He's got a little bit more bend than you think. So I like it. I think it's going to take a lot of reps to get there, so I hope that they continue to do it. What he did last week was an overhang, right, where you have your base alignment, and he comes down as like the extra. And that's why he was unblocked on that sack. And so if they continue to do that, it does trigger him a little bit. It develops a little bit, but he has to survive contact as well. So we need to see that continue so that he can make improvements. He has shown that he is ready to improve, and he's certainly capable of it. So keep giving him new things to do, new ways to attack, and I think he will improve. Let's see. Brian, will they activate Coburn if Karlaftis and Dan are unable to play? Could we see CJ at the end? Yes, it will definitely see CJ at the end a few times. I'm not sure how much. But yes, I'm hoping that they activate Coburn. If they don't, that means that they're just saving him a little bit, and they want to see Farrell put something up. And more importantly, that they're comfortable with both Turk Wharton and Derek Nottie, so that Chris can go outside if Mike is on the other side. The other thing that they can do is, when you get a feel for it, FAU rushes from the right-hand side of the defense predominantly. I've seen them do it from the other side. It's a little bit less intimidating, but that's the best matchup. So if George can't go, you might see FAU flip over, and I think that they would be comfortable with that because of his talent and his length in particular. That's where I'm at. So Doctor Who, nah, nothing can make this face look any better, buddy. I mean, yeah, that doesn't help, does it? Yeah. This face, she's all that situation. Yeah, well, hey, I appreciate it. Info, nice to see you. Are there too many wide receivers? Maybe one less would help the rest get the reps and the rhythm they need. I mean, that's a fair point. Honest, though, I think that was more of an issue when Rich James was here because there were more guys getting those reps. Washington isn't playing on offense very much at all. So it's really down to a 6-man rotation. Even that is probably too much. So I hear where you're coming from for certain. But in the end, I think it's still very much a feeling out process. Throw targets at everyone and see who reacts, who can actually improve and rise to the occasion. I think that's what they're looking for. So I can live with it for now. You get to play the Bills, you get to play the Bengals. I'm not playing around anymore. I got to have 4 targets that I can go to that I know can get it done. And that's why I think Justin Watson is still high on their radar. I know everybody wanted to see him off the roster this preseason, and Dan and I were trying to explain it. Like, they, not just Patrick, but the staff trust Justin Watson. And so he's one of them. And so I need 3 other guys that they can put out there against the big foes. In the meantime, find out who that's going to be. Just give them opportunities. That's kind of how I feel about it. So, in fact, let's take a look at this together before we call it a night, because here's Travis. Let's look at total targets. Travis, Rice, Tony, Watson. Moore and Watson are actually tied, and No Gray's just a little bit behind. MVS not getting much, barely ahead of Justin Ross. You know, Richie James is way down here. Obviously, he got hurt and all that. But so now it's these 3 that really look to be your leaders. When we had Sky Moore and MVS being the starters, the guys that were going to get fed earlier in the season. So there's a shifting here, but I don't think that it's done. I think it's still an exploration, and they got to knock it down and figure it out. Ryan, what's your biggest concern about the team? Whether is it a group or a certain player? This team without the Patrick to Travis connection is going to stall out a lot more. So I will say that I'm worried about Travis. Other than that, I feel like it's all a maybe right now. The wide receivers are a maybe, and the D-line is a maybe outside of Chris Jones. George has been consistent, but is that enough to be a D-line that can win a championship? I'm not sure. So I got to see progress there. I feel comfortable with the linebackers. I'm comfortable with the secondary, so I think we're good. We're going to wrap it up with Quinton's. Does J. Watt have any chance of an expanded role? Seems like the Pats' go-to guy on deep balls. I think that he does, but he is playing quite a bit. So, like, you know, he's up there in target share. As long as he keeps making plays, he will continue to get a few more looks. I agree. So we'll see how it comes down against the Broncos. They may not have to pass all night. It may turn in a run fest late in the game. We'll just have to see. But that's how I see it. Appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell. If you're new to us, welcome to RGR Football. We're going to be back with you post-game. Dan and I will go live right after the ball game. So we should be set to go and be all good. I know it's going to be a late one, but we hope that you will all come back. And for those of you that are not watching live tonight, give us your prediction on a score down in the comments, and make sure you come back tomorrow night post-game. So that was a fun one. I hope you guys are good just talking with me tonight. Appreciate your time and all of your comments. Thank you for every super chat tonight. For you members, join at the rookie level. There'll be something out tonight as a link. And then Dan's rant goes up tomorrow. So make sure you check in for that as well. Rookie level above in the memberships, get all those tomorrow. So have a great night. Enjoy your time, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.